All right, let's go ahead and get on with our first guest. Our first guest tonight is Elaine Davidson. Elaine works at a Fortune 500 company as an administrative assistant supporting a group of 60 talented engineers, chemists, and managers. Much of her free time is spent paranormal investigating. Elaine began experiencing things as a young girl that she could not explain. So in 2005, she began actively investigating the paranormal and is the founding member of the Western Oregon Organization of Paranormal Investigators, WOOPI. An incident in 2012 where her seemingly healthy team investigated a home and they all became ill after the investigation. It made Elaine wonder about the potential hazards to teams that expose themselves during investigations, what they expose themselves to. Aided by several doctors and health departments, Elaine wrote a basic pamphlet called Safety Tips for Paranormal Investigators. Her goal is to spread the word about the health and safety issues investigators face so they are safe during an investigation. Her website is at www.paranormalsafety.com. Without any further delay, let's go ahead and get Elaine on. Elaine, good evening. Welcome to K-Talk and the Fringe Radio Show.
Hi.
How are you?
I am great.
Well, it's great to have you here tonight.
Cool. I'm glad to be here.
Storming up in the Northwest tonight, Elaine?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it's been misty all day, and then just a few minutes ago we had an electrical storm come through.
Wow. Well, we had our share of that here on Thursday and Friday, and beautiful sunny day today, high 80s, super low humidity, so I cannot complain. So hopefully that will move through and not interfere with our interview tonight.
Well, it seems to be done for now, so let's just hope it holds.
Sounds great. Well, as I mentioned your bio, as I read your bio off, and of course I didn't even scratch the surface. Why don't you give us the listeners a little bit of a backstory? How did you get into paranormal investigating? What started it off for you? And let's hear your story.
Well, I grew up in a house near Lebanon, Oregon. The house that was built like in the 1870s. What I didn't know until like 10 years ago, that house that I grew up in was actually owned and built by a relative. Distant one, obviously. And there had been many deaths in this house, but we didn't know that when I was a kid.
Right.
And as a child, I kept getting tucked into bed at night. Come to find out, my mother never tucked me into bed at night.
Wow.
And I mean, it would be like I'd be half asleep and somebody come tuck me in and give me a kiss.
Physically, they do this. No, physically. This was a physical thing.
Yes, every night. And my mom always thought I was tucking myself into bed.
Okay.
I did never tuck myself into bed. So, it always made me wonder, what in the world, if Mom wasn't doing it, I wasn't doing it, how was that happening?
Right.
Especially because I remember this, and it was like, it always bothered me for years. It was like, what was going on in that house? Nothing ever bad happened in that house. When I was a little older, my mom was telling me a story, same house, where she had been up in the upstairs bedroom, and I was crying because I was a little kid. She was like going, okay, I got to go get a baby bottle. Got to get it going. And, of course, this was in the early 60s, so she had to go down and no microwaves. And she got downstairs, and the baby bottle was warming on the stove.
By itself?
By itself.
Okay.
She hadn't gone downstairs. There was nobody there to warm the baby bottle. So, needless to say, we had caring living ghosts in our house.
Did you, one thing I find so interesting with paranormal research is doing the historical research. Have you dug in on that home and done all the historical, all the detail work?
Oh, yes. I know everybody that ever lived there. What really freaked me out is going back about 55 years, everybody 55 years to the time the house was built was a relative of mine. In 1880 something. I can't remember the exact date, but the mother, who would have been my great aunt or something like that.
Okay.
She and her kids all got Spanish fever. 4 of her children died. Only her husband and 2 sons survived that incident.
Wow.
And so, there was death and stuff that it actually happened in the home. And as I went back through the people that had lived in the house, I think there was like 10 or 12 people that had died in the home. 5 to 6 of them were younger, under the age of 15.
As far as the deaths, did you dig into the deaths, Elaine? How they passed away? Was anybody? I don't want to use the M word, but I mean, were they all natural causes, or?
They were all natural.
Okay.
There was no violent deaths there. Well, I shouldn't say no violent death. The closest we came to a violent death is a horse actually reared up and hit one of the children in the head with his hooves, and
that took him out?
Yeah.
Wow. That's unbelievable. So obviously your family was into, I would hope that they were all into accepting that type of thing. I mean, back then, of course today where people are more and more open-minded about stuff, but was everybody open-minded back then, or did it scare some people, or how did the family take it?
I come from a very open-minded family with very open-minded beliefs. So, yeah, that was very open-minded back then. We talked about it. It wasn't, something that we didn't talk about. However, because I have several relatives that are clairvoyants and definitely psychic, they were all told, don't talk about it outside the home.
Right.
My great aunt actually died in the Oregon Mental Hospital because she was taken away because she was speaking to spirits.
Who took her away? Was she taken away by family? Somebody having her committed, or?
She was committed by the police.
Wow.
And that was fairly common in the valley here.
So a lot of people that thought they saw things did it, right away, and that's something that I find quite interesting. I've talked about this on many programs, and of course maybe I'd like to get your thoughts. But I think there's so many people out there that get diagnosed. I believe there truly are people that are bipolar. There are truly people that are schizophrenic. I mean, there's a lot of mental conditions, mental illnesses out there, or conditions, I should say. But I wonder, Elaine, and maybe you could talk a little bit on it. I mean, since you've seen this a little bit or been around a little bit, people that are put away or are put on heavy doses of medication to suppress things. Because they're talking about things that are a little bit different, and I wonder how many people today in this world, in this country, are on different forms of drugs and medicine to keep them very dumbed down, very quieted down, because they've seen something or experienced something, and some doctor or some police officer or some judge has considered them a danger to themselves.
I think that happens more often than we want to admit. I know personally in our family we've had, even though it was a couple of generations ago, we had her convicted. She hadn't hurt anybody. She hadn't done anything except she would go around and talk to ghosts and tell people she was talking to ghosts. That was her only crime. I think it starts to cross lines when if nobody's actually being hurt by what they're saying or doing, and they're not violent, I start to question whether or not are they really, or they could be mentally ill. I'm not going to deny that. But
right.
Why do people jump straight to being mentally ill? We don't know we know what we see and hear for sure, but that doesn't mean there's something wrong past that. You know, it scares me that we may have locked up way too many people or are heavily medicating people shouldn't be.
Yeah, it's and again, I tend to think it does happen a lot more. I think some people may be clairvoyant, maybe they're very intuitive, maybe they are psychic, they have some psychic abilities or psychic gifts of sorts, and then again, somebody deems them a danger to themselves. It doesn't take much to get I don't want to say locked up in a mental institution or put under observation, but it doesn't take a whole heck of a lot to get some doctor to start prescribing heavy-duty, mind-altering drugs.
I find that to be true, but I also find out, I've talked to more and more people recently where the doctors have asked them flat out, do you think you're clairvoyant?
Okay.
And I'm like going, seriously? The doctor actually asked that? And more and more doctors are starting to, at least in our area, explore the possibility that maybe there is something else out there.
Very true.
And it's freaking me out. I'm happy about it, don't get me wrong, but I was like, I never thought I'd see the day where a doctor wouldn't just grab his prescription pad and start filling it out if somebody said they were talking to dead people.
Yeah. So you grew up around all of this. Did it scare you when you were younger? I mean, did it frighten you, or did it interest you?
I grew up accepting the fact that it was normal, so I didn't have any fear of it.
Okay.
I think it's different when you aren't exposed or your family isn't accepting of it. But my family believing this was part of life kind of made things a little different and put things in a different perspective for me.
Well, and that's the sad thing, Elaine, is there's a lot of people today. Well, I shouldn't say today. Again, I believe things are changing. But, not that many years ago to talk about these subjects, whether it's paranormal research or cryptozoology or ufology or whatever it may be, not that many years ago, talking about these things could cost you your job, could cost you bad feelings within your family. I know that we've been doing this show. We're coming up on, it's going to be 4 years we've been doing this. And my mom is I'm a Chicago native. She still lives in Chicago. She's an old world Italian Catholic woman, and when I tell her about what we talk about on the air and what our show is all about, she just thinks, even now, you're just crazy, even talking about that craziness. It's amazing though how, like I said, people are starting to become more open-minded, but there are so many people out there that are very closed-minded, and depending on the subject or the topic, talking about these things in public to this day can cost you your job, or if not cost you your job, maybe cost you a promotion, or just deem you as somebody who's a little bit odd.
Well, I think everybody I work with wrote me off as a little bit odd, even if they didn't know I was doing the paranormal, so I don't have to worry about that.
Okay.
But I think it's more and more, at least in my area, even the police departments are stepping up and going, hey, listen, we used a psychic medium in this.
Right.
That never used to happen. And I think with the police department stepping up and going, hey, listen, we did this investigation and we were aided by a psychic medium or whatever, it has lessened that. It's given more respect to those people that may be psychic mediums, and people are going, well, if the police used them and they're a person of authority and they believe in it, maybe these people aren't such crazy idiots.
Right. Well, let's talk about. So now you started. You're a founding member of a paranormal team of Whoopee up in your area.
Right.
So were you doing investigate? Obviously, you grew up with the paranormal. You grew up with things. You felt it was very normal. A lot of things happened. So you started this own. Were you doing paranormal investigations on your own, or at least delving into things on your own, and then you formed this organization? How did that all come together? And then, of course, we're going to talk about tonight the crux of why you're here. But how did your team form, and were you doing that before you had a team?
Well, I didn't really do much until I was out of high school, and then I just started poking around and wondering and thinking. And then, of course, I got married and had children, and I really didn't do a lot because I was too busy with family. And then it was about 99, I think it was, I joined a team that's no longer here, and I was with them for several years. Didn't do a lot. That was before all the paranormal TV shows came on the air. But we would go to, like, cemeteries or old historical places, walk around, check them out. And then it wasn't until 2010 that Whoopi formed. The team I had been on previously, they had decided, okay, we've been doing this for a while. We need to take a very healthy, long 3-4 year break. And I wasn't ready to stop. I was ready to keep going. So at that point, myself and several friends formed Whoopi.
Gotcha. Is your group still, are you very active? You still do investigations?
We don't do a lot of investigations at this point. It comes in waves. We've had investigations back-to-back weekends, gone crazy, and then other times we don't do an investigation for several weeks to several months. We really, honestly, would only prefer to do an investigation once a month.
Really? Just a little too much time? Is it a little too time-consuming or a little too draining?
It's draining, and the fact we've been criticized for this, and I understand the criticism. We're very picky on our data, and everything is reviewed twice to 3 times.
Okay.
And if we don't agree on it, we throw it out. And it takes a while to go through 30 hours of video 3 times.
Right. Well, I'm not a paranormal investigator by any means, but I've captured quite a few EVPs on my own. But that's going through and sifting through many hours of static, listening to different things, and I think a lot of people that aren't into the technical side of it or realize what it takes from a technical standpoint to go through those audio files, to look at the films. I mean, it's there's a ton of work there to be done if you want to get if you want to get some answers or maybe find some answers.
Well, we tell the people that we invest when we go in, it's like, okay, for every hour of video or audio or data captured, we're looking at about 3 times that in review. So it's an hour's worth of video. We're going to spend at least 3 hours on it. And by the time you capture multiple cameras, it multiplies exponentially fast. Yeah. What type of equipment do you use? Actually, one of our listeners sent in a couple. We got some emails that were coming in for you, Elaine. What type of equipment do you use, or what type of equipment does your group use? We use a little of everything. We do have a DVR system. Okay. Really nice one. We use a lot of handhelds, even some cheap, like today we went out to a haunted location and we stuck up some of our little cheap handy cam types. We have some, humidifier, data loggers to kind of keep track of that type of stuff. Millimeter. My favorite piece of equipment, which I get laughed about, is a compass. Okay. I still use that old-fashioned compass. We just have a great mix. We don't use a lot of the super high-end, like the HD 4000 audio recorders. What? I like them, don't get me wrong. It's just, you can hear somebody sneeze 1.5 miles away on that thing. Right. And you don't know that the person's not. So, it's like every piece of equipment out there, I really think has really good strong points and really good weak points.
Yeah, one thing I've found is that I've just used my phone. I've got an Alcatel, a simple phone that's got a voice recorder in it, and that seems to do pretty well. I mean, I've captured quite a bit off of it. And another piece of equipment I had the opportunity to pick up. I picked up I'm an IT guy by trade. It's my day job, and I actually picked up a tablet. And you can do films with that, movies with that, recordings with that. It's an amazing tool.
Yeah, I laugh at the people, and I laugh just because it's like, oh man, I know so many people that have done this. They go out and spend thousands of dollars on equipment. There was a team here in Oregon. They started up like 2 years ago. They went out within the first 4 or 5 months and spent $4,500, excuse me, not thousand, $4,500 on equipment. And I'm like, why? Because you don't need to spend that kind of money.
Right.
So we keep it simple and cheap.
Well, yeah, because again, it's the equipment. The equipment may be great. Having all this stuff is fun, but it's the work that takes all the time.
Yeah. And a simple Sony recorder is just as good as a what was it, $900 recorder. I just looked up the other day. It was like, wow, I'm not paying $900 for an audio recorder.
Right. Exactly. So, the one thing I with paranormal researchers, first of all, the one thing I would like to say is I would like to thank you for doing it, because I don't think that the true researchers, I don't feel that it's a hobby. Every now and then I'll hear someone saying, well, my hobby is ghost hunting. I think that people that are really dedicated to it here in Utah, a lot of the groups that you maybe met at the Paracon West, some of the groups there, they dedicate a good portion of their life. I mean, they all work 9-to-5 jobs. They've got day jobs, and they spend their weekends, they spend evenings in different places. Of course, I think there's curiosity, but most of the groups that we've had the opportunity to interview, Elaine, is they want to help people out, and that's the biggest thing. They want to help people out. They want to help people when they've got something going on in their home, even if it has nothing to do with the paranormal. Most of them are more than willing to at least go in and take a look around and say, hey, it's a squeaky floor. Look at the old wiring in this house, or what have you. But people that do it who are in earnest about it, I mean, they spend a lot of time. They spend a lot of their own money to do it. Nobody's making a buck off of it. It's just they want to help people. There's curiosity, but there's also helping others if they feel that something's going on, and maybe help somebody understand it a little bit more. If not, maybe find a solution.
That's really what we try to do. We can't necessarily help everybody. We try. Everybody that we can help, we try. In Oregon, there's a lot of there's some laws that make it very tricky. Let's say somebody wanted their house cleansed. Our team doesn't do that for legal reasons, because in our state that's considered a service, and if the person says, well, they didn't do it right, they could sue us. So, we don't do certain things. But we do wind up with finding a lot of people that maybe have psychic abilities that are just starting to tap into them but didn't realize they were tapping into them. And hooking those people up, especially with people that can mentor them through what they're going through, is really important, because people start to think, like we were talking at the beginning of the show, people think they're crazy. We've ran into people that are like, I think I'm nut job, but could you please come check out my house?
Right.
And we've walked in there and checked out the house and goes, you're not crazy, you're psychic.
Right.
You're okay. Here, let's put you in contact with somebody that can help you through this.
Right.
And there's a very rewarding feeling. Or we've gone into houses doing a pre-investigation and walked in and went, you see this light? You see this meter here? We turn on this light, and it spikes way out of the normal range. You got something going on in your wall. The guy went and changed the light socket because he called in a electrician. Well, it was actually burning the insulation around the light socket.
Wow.
And a fire almost started. So, we've had a few incidents like that it's like, was there a ghost? Well, in many, many cases, we go in and find real-world causes, and we never proceed to an investigation. But did we help them? Yeah, they know what's going on. They know that baby crying sound that they thought was a raccoon under their house.
Right. Well, very true. I mean, that's what it's all about is helping people out and helping people discover if they've got issues, if they've got things going on, maybe, coming up with some sort of solution. I'm curious, what were the, if you don't mind, what were the legal problems with the house cleansing? There
was a group that went in, and it was a team I was actually a part of. I wasn't part of this when it happened, though. They went in, they did a cleansing, they saged and said lots of prayers and left. And within 3 weeks, they had a summons to go to court for failure to perform a service. Now, they were not paid when they went in and did this house cleansing.
Okay.
But in the state of Oregon, that doesn't matter. Free services, because they can say, well, it mentally damaged us because it didn't go away.
Wow.
And so knowing that had happened, I'm like, our team's a little nervous about it. It's like, okay, if we can get in any legal bind, as much as we'd like to go in and do this, we won't. So we don't do that, but there are teams in our area that will still do it.
So were they trying to were the homeowners or whatever they were they trying to pull a like a civil suit on the paranormal investigation team?
They did do a civil suit and they won, I think, total of $4,500. And I just sat there going, wow. I couldn't believe that the family had won, but they did. Supposedly it was mentally stressing on the family.
That's insane. That's absolutely. I mean, that's like, yeah. Well, I guess it takes all types of different people to make the world go around. But again, that's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Well, I know the investigators that did that. They would give you the shirt off their back. They would never hurt anybody intentionally. I don't believe what they did hurt anybody. I think they were framed.
Yeah.
That's my gut feeling. I know that there's some people who go, well, they shouldn't have done it in the first place. But everybody's entitled to their opinion.
Sure. No, I like I said, I think most people that are in this, that are doing this, they're not trying to cause harm. I think sometimes, there's no professional training or certification, to my knowledge, with this subject, and I'm sure it's quite subject to interpretation. And I could understand, maybe somebody making a comment or something like that a little out of the box, and they should be careful. But, Elaine, we're going to take a quick commercial break over here so we can pay the light bill.
Okay.
Our guest tonight is Elaine Davidson. Her website is paranormalsafety.com, and we're going to get into talking about that, having fun tonight, live on the 26th of June, summer of 2014. Rod Sterling, it would have been his birthday today. He was born in 1924 and died in 1975 on today's date, on the 28th. Unbelievable. Still love the old Twilight Zone shows. How about you, Elaine?
I actually totally still enjoy those. I got some old radio stations that play them in the middle of the night, and the talking versions of the Twilight. And,
right.
I listen to them all the time.
Oh, cool. We, matter of fact, I've got a card. I met her at the Comic-Con. His daughter, Ann Serling, has written a book about her dad, and we had some family things come up back in April that we're working through or getting over with, and I shouldn't say getting over with, that we're working through, and met her at the Comic-Con, and we need to get her on the program. And a very interesting lady. I talked with her for quite some time, and her book is I have to get a copy of the book, but people that I've talked to said her book is so interesting, talking about her father and growing up and all the things that he was involved with. Before the break, we talked about again this team, this research team, sadly that got a civil suit put on them, and as I mentioned. It's really sad because there is no formal training. I think as far as training, the training comes from other team members, people trying to help others out, trying to teach people the craft of helping others.
That's what we all do.
And it is really super sad. It's just sad that you have to have that type of thing happen. Okay, let's talk about because we did get some questions for you. Well, I'm gonna ask you one question, and then the other one is kind of going to go along the topic of our discussion tonight. Our friend Sky out in Ohio writes, says, Elaine, do you think that there is a percentage of psychics who instead of tuning in would like to tune out sometimes, maybe during investigations?
I know many psychics that would like to tune out. Matters of fact, there is actually a couple of people in the Pacific Northwest that teach people how to tune out their psychic abilities. Because, having that those ghosts show up and say, hey, look at me all the time, when you're trying to live your life can be quite hectic and quite stressful on people. So there is actually a whole bunch of people now teaching classes on how not to be psychic or how to tune it out. And I think there's a big need for that.
Well, yeah, and we've had different psychics on the program over the years, and I know some people. There is I can't think of the lady's name now. It's a mother and son team that go out and do investigations, and she claims that there's so much. She picks up so much stuff that. Just trying to fall asleep at night is very difficult, trying to tune things out.
I have heard that over and over and over again from many people, especially people that are just coming into their abilities or just learning about their abilities. It's like I jokingly say you fell out of the paranormal closet and into the real world, and now you have to deal with it.
Right.
Because you're sheltered, and all of a sudden, boom, something either, in some cases, I think it's just age. Sometimes something happens to a person, and all of a sudden, all this comes rushing on them. I think it can be extremely overwhelming.
Now, does your group use a psychic?
We use a lot of remote psychics.
Okay.
And every time our team uses a remote psychic, we use 3. Because as much as I love all my psychic friends, and I have many psychic friends, they're human. And we had, I can tell you a couple of stories that totally illustrate that won't take too long. We had a place up near Estacada. And we did the pre-investigation on this house, and we took some pictures, and they said, well, can you have a psychic, kind of look this over? And it was like, oh, yeah, sure. So we sent them off to 3 psychics, and we don't always use the same 3 psychics. And 2 of them came back. One person came back and says, was there a murder in this house? Because I see blood everywhere. And I'm like, uh-oh. And we hadn't really totally researched the house. And another one's talking about blood dripping off the table. Okay, that's kind of creepy.
Yeah.
And then the third one goes, was this like an old hunting cabin? Because I see somebody dragging a deer through the front door. Guess what? It was a hunting cabin. And when we researched it, it had been added on to like 6 times. But the original main part of the house where those photos were was the original hunting cabin built in the late 1800s.
Gotcha.
So, they all worked together in that, and they told the story. Another time, not with my current team, but with my last team, we had sent some pictures to 3 psychics. 2 of them totally read the house, and we already knew the history. Everything they said coincided with the history. Well, the individual who had sent the pictures off had gone to this other historic place, and the psychic read the person at the other historic place, not the place in the pictures. And there was enough identifying information that psychic gave. Yeah, he was totally reading. Totally psychic. Wrong place. So just as a double check, not to say one psychic's better than another, we use multiple psychics.
And then kind of take an average of the 3.
Well, kind of take an average. We listen to what each one of them says, and it's like, well, maybe that's a road, because maybe somebody gets something the other 2 don't. But it's like if something's way crazy and we can't coincide, but it's really nice when they all can coincide and everything builds a picture. And that happens quite a bit, that there's pieces of one picture that we're able to verify with the history.
Have you ever done investigations, Elaine, where the homeowner doesn't want a psychic in the house?
Oh, yes. We've done a few that they did not want a psychic involved in any way, shape, or form, and that's totally fine. Mainly for religious reasons. There's a few churches in our area that believe psychics. I don't know how to say this exactly, but are really bad.
Okay.
And so they, following their church doctrines and what their ministers teach as Sunday school, they don't want a psychic there. So we don't bring a psychic there and try and keep it very, very scientific on those.
Well, yeah, and I guess I can understand that. I know that some people it's interesting, but I've met a lot of people that not a lot, I should say, it's not a true statement, but I have met people that psychics tend to scare them a little bit. They just I don't know if they feel that maybe a psychic has that sense and they can read their minds or maybe read their past thoughts or something like that. But I've encountered some people that have a big fear of them. There's people that don't believe, but there are some that are afraid of them.
Well, so far, everyone that I have encountered that's really, truly been afraid, there's the one passage in the Bible, I always say the wrong name, so I'm not even going to try, where when one person was a warrior, he was going to go to battle, and he went and called a psychic and asked for a prediction as to what was going to be the outcome so he could overcome it. And in the end, he wound up dying. Anyway, from something else, but he wound up dying. And the moral of the story is, basically don't ask a psychic to tell you your future. Don't cheat.
Right.
And that's where a lot of the fear has come from. I was like, I don't ask a psychic to tell me the future. They're here to read the past, not the future. So, but I understand where the nervousness comes from. And it is their belief, and I feel that they are totally entitled to it. I don't have to agree with it, but I do respect them having their beliefs.
What do you think? Does your team use when you do the investigations, and if you do some cleansing work, or if there's the potential of something demonic, do you ever use like a Catholic priest or priests at all?
Well, actually, we did one not too long ago, and we did actually call a priest. We have a priest in our area that will go and bless homes. He doesn't do, he's not a demonologist, but he does go and do blessings in homes. And we've actually got a Catholic priest, Episcopalian priest, and one from the Lutheran Church. That all three do it. And they've actually referred clients to us as well.
Are people pretty easy with a priest coming in the house?
They seem to. The ones that have had the priest come in and do a walkthrough and bless the home. I don't know. Usually, to be honest, there hasn't been a lot of stuff going on. The one not too long ago, the woman is psychic. Very psychic. And just learning that she's psychic. But it made her very comfortable and relaxed after the priest came in. She was a very deeply religious woman to start with. Kind of got the idea when we walked through the front door and there was a 6-foot statue of Mary and a rosary that literally was 9 feet tall on the wall.
Wow.
I mean, it was like, okay, we're Catholic. We know this. No hiding it in this home. But after the priest came in and sat and talked with her, we went and talked to her and said, hey, this is what we think's going on. And, it's going to be okay. And why don't you call? And I had told them that, I didn't give the priest their name because it's up to them to talk to the priest. But I said, he's expecting a call. Tell him that, Whoopi told you to call. And they did call him, and he went in and he talked with her and said, no, sweetheart, you're not crazy. These things happen. You're okay. And blessed the house and blessed her. And she's much more at ease.
Right.
I think a lot of it is just getting the stress off. Okay, I'm not crazy. And I think hearing it from the father of the church made her feel so much better. Gotcha.
Well, and that's what I think so many of us want is just as humans, we kind of want that little bit of reassurance that if you see something or if you encountered something that I think even above and beyond assurance, Elaine, someone that at least half, I'll throw that out there, someone that at least half believes you a little bit, someone that doesn't think that you're telling stories or making up something. I think that's something as humans we all crave. We've got a NBC news break coming up in just a few seconds here. I'll let you go ahead and take a break for a minute, get a little something to drink, and then we're going to talk about your website, about your pamphlet, and we're going to talk about safety because that's I'm very interested, and we got a lot of questions sent in, and looking forward to it. Our guest tonight on Fringe Radio is Elaine Davidson. You can check out her website at paranormalsafety.com, all the stuff out there about her group and their work and stuff like that. And then we're going to talk about safety tips for paranormal investigators and even for some of those of you out there that may consider doing it.